I thought of, the psychologist Roy Baumeister has a lovely phrase. I'm going to botch it. It's something like a useful degree of delusion. And the useful degree of delusion is an observation made that when you look at happy couples, for example, and you ask them about their spouse, what you discover is that their image of their spouse is not grounded in reality. They think their spouse is far more attractive than they actually are, far more intelligent than they actually are, devoid of all sorts of flaws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they are deluded, but they're deluded in a lovely and useful way. You can make the same observation, of course, about entrepreneurs, that if an entrepreneur was rational, they wouldn't start the company because most companies fail. If you're rational, you would go to dentistry school, right? That is the rational. Or become an accountant. And actually, dentist is the best. People are always going to need to have their teeth fixed. And it's a steady income. There's a need for dentists.
Right.
And then you can make up new uses if they brush your teeth and they don't have cavities, then you cap the teeth, right? You can constantly, it's a fantastic business. But I don't think there's any dentists in this room. Most people in this room have chosen to do something that's a little bit irrational.
Right.
So if they were entirely rational decision makers, and if they went through an exhaustive rational process, wouldn't we have suboptimal outcomes? People would never get married, and they wouldn't start any businesses, and we would all be single dentists.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I hadn't thought about it in terms of the dentist model. But I think that I guess I wouldn't describe what I'm arguing for in this book as a purely rational process, because what it really is trying to do is, the word that keeps coming up in the book again and again is diversity, right? Like trying to approach the problem you're wrestling with from diverse angles, from diverse perspectives, to have a team of people around you that are analyzing from different ways, to challenge yourself to build alternative stories about how things could turn out, and because the flip side of that irrational exuberance and confidence is overconfidence and confirmation bias, and you get really excited about an idea and you jump into it and it turns out you missed something important. And so a lot of what I write about in the book is trying to actually have just kind of weirder perspectives on and a kind of wider range of perspectives on the problem that you're looking at. So like one of the examples in the book, we talk about scenario planning, which is this technique that was developed in the 70s largely as a kind of business technique. And it's really a storytelling exercise, right? You're like confronting this big choice, and you, as an exercise, you tell 3 or 4 stories about the future if we decide to launch this new product, or if we decide to do this in our lives. Tell 3 or 4 different stories about how that might pan out. And one of the exercises that I love is one where you tell 3 different versions of the story. One where things get better, one where things get worse, and one where things get weird, right? And that exercise of trying to imagine what that future is where things get weird, even if it doesn't happen, ends up opening you to kind of new possibilities or seeing things that you might not have seen, and helps you kind of just perceive the landscape more clearly. I don't see that. To me, doesn't strike me as being a rational. It's like I've computed the answer to this problem, and with 97% probability, I think this is the right choice. What you're doing,
not right. It's considered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's considered. It's deliberative. It's creative. It's a narrative kind of process. The other technique that Gary Klein developed that you wrote about in Blink as well, in the basement fire story, is this pre-mortem technique, right? Which is you've decided that this is a path you're going to go down. Everybody's excited about it. You run this exercise called a pre-mortem, where you basically you're told in 2 years this decision we were about to make turns out to be an utter failure, a complete catastrophe. Tell the story of how that catastrophe happened. And when you do that exercise, it turns out to be a much more effective way to get people to think about the decision they're about to make, instead of just saying, hey, we're about to make this choice, do you see any flaws? When you ask people to answer that question, they're like, no, it's great, it's fantastic, let's go. I'm really excited about this. When you force them to tell the story about how it all goes south and becomes a disaster, they end up actually being more perceptive. And so to me, that's about just widening your field of vision. It's not about some kind of fully rational process,
Yeah, yeah.
which I would think you would be cool with.